It was independent. This is, our first opportunity, teenagers, to try something new, something exciting. And we didn't know where the journey was going to take us. But boy, 40 years later, it's been a journey. So, all of us who got our start at the University of Rochester, we're so fortunate because we didn't just get an education, although that was important. We got the chance. And back in my era, I graduated in 1983. One of our panelists is 1982. Back in that era, it was still pretty new for women in large numbers to be graduating from universities and choosing a path. But we did get to do that. And here in New England, we have a lot of history as well. And some of the women who came before us are so powerful. They worked so hard for the benefits we all reaped today. And one of my favorites is Abigail Adams. And she's one who famously encouraged her husband to consider the ladies as he was making decisions about how to set up this new country of ours. And she felt strongly that the new nation should have learned women. Well, here we are, ladies. We are the learned women, thanks to Abigail Adams in the 1700s. And I'm always reminded, I think I get more and more like this the older I get. I'm reminded of the women who went before us. They had their own journeys, but they weren't necessarily with so many options like we have today. So we're grateful to them. And we have a job now to set that next rung in the ladder for our girls, for the younger generation. And so today, these amazing panelists, they're each leaving a mark in their careers, for their families, for the younger generations. They define success in their own way. And I think you're just going to be blown away by what these women are doing. But their start at Rochester maybe wasn't where they thought they'd end, which is where they are today. So since those first days of independence, where are you today, ladies? And let me introduce you all to one of my era women. Cheryl LaMonica is here with us, and Penny Salpe. She is a roommate of one of our New England Women Board Steering Committee members, and Athena Kazvikis, who is a little bit younger. And we've got these different generations of women who all got their start in the same place in front of Wilson Commons. So that, and Marisa Wilson is our U of R advocate and liaison. She's been amazing helping us get these programs off the ground and running. And she's behind the scenes. Internet's a little wobbly right now, but Marisa says hello and welcome to everyone. We're going to take your questions, so please put them in the chat throughout. And with that, let me start with Cheryl. Cheryl, I'd like for you to kick us off and maybe spend about 5 minutes sharing with the attendees what you've been doing since the U of R. What's your journey been like?
Okay, hope you can hear me. My name is Cheryl LaMonica, and I graduated class of 1982. So when I first went to the U of R, I was thinking about becoming pre-med, but that interfered with my swimming, just running from the lab, getting to practice on time. As you can see from my slide, I swam for 4 years. I was an All-American swimmer in 3 individual strokes, butterfly, breaststroke, and freestyle, my junior and senior year, and I won several state championships. So I figured out, well, I like business, so I majored in, I interdepartmental major, so I was able to combine some business courses I took over the Graduate School of Management and economics. I was able to do that, which was great. So I was able to stay at Rochester, because actually I was thinking about transferring to a school that had a business administration degree, but luckily I did not. From there, from the University of Rochester, I went to New York City. I call it starting my career as a bankette. So I worked at Manny Hanny, which back then was the 4th largest bank in the US. I was in a management training program for branch operations. I did that for a couple of years. Then I went a fellowship to get my MBA because I wanted to do something else in banking. I wanted to get more into finance. I was thinking more to get credit trained, maybe get into the credit training program, something like that. Getting more into a corporate finance role. So I went a fellowship to Pace University. I got my degree in banking and finance. And I was lucky enough to get an internship during the summer before I graduated in Paris at Société Générale. So it was my last summer before graduation. I wanted to do something different. So I was applying to all different types of internships that would get me, like at the World Bank, IFAD, World Health Organization to get me, some international experience. And I ended up working for the World Corresponding Banking Department. So I spent the summer in Paris, and that was wonderful. One of the best experiences I ever had. And my boyfriend back then, who was going to Columbia, he has studied at Columbia as a PhD in microbiology. He came to visit me, so it was really, really great. From there, I went to segue to Chemical Bank, and I was in a training program to be an international lender in the credit training program, the World Banking Group. I did that for a couple of years. Then I segued to the OCC and became a national bank examiner, first in New York City, and then moving after I got married with my husband, who I had to follow him to LA, and luckily I was able to get a transfer to the Los Angeles office of the OCC while he was doing his postdoc at USC. Now, my husband is European. He is from Rome, Italy, and he had this great opportunity to start working at a new research institute that was started by Merck, the big pharma company. And so we took the plunge. I thought I was only going to be there for a few years, ended up staying over 18 years. So had a big, wide awakening moment, trying to get adjusted to Rome. I couldn't work because I had to get my Italian citizenship. So in the meantime, kind of pivoted to another thing. I started teaching executive education courses, corporate finance courses to executives at Telecom Italia and some of the large major Italian banks, teaching credit courses in that because they were going through the ECHO and proceeding to go to the euro. All the European countries were getting rid of their local currency and heading to the euro. So I did that for a few years. Then when I started my family, it was very difficult. I was traveling a lot. Telecom Italia, I worked in corporate finance, in the marketing team. They also sent me to New York for 2 years, and that was a great experience. Even though my husband was in Rome, it was kind of strange, but it was good because I was able to really concentrate on my career, and I was able to see him about every 2 months. He would come to New York City because he was going to Jersey, so it worked out fine. But it really gave me time to focus on my career, have that extra time, not having children, just to really jump in and learn a new business. And I really think that if you ever get a chance to work abroad and with the company, you should take it because that is the opportunity where you're going to have access to top executives. From there, I segued to be a professor because I started my family and I needed to have more of a part-time, more flexible role because my husband was traveling a lot at Merck. Then his research institute closed down, so we had to pivot again, and then we moved to Boston. So I started teaching, again, taught business schools in Boston, like Babson and Bentley, which I enjoyed immensely. Then I got kind of itchy, was trying to get back into corporate space, and I was able to get a bank consulting job at a small community bank, Cambridge Savings Bank. And it's funny, I met a really good friend, and we did not recognize each other because I had long hair in college. She had short hair and she was kind of blonde, but when I heard her laugh, I ran down the hall and there was a really good friend of mine that I used to have lunch and dinner with and go to movies with. So that was really fun, just, reconnecting again. From there, I segued to Harvard Business School. I was accepted to the Journal Management program at Harvard Business School. We had 92 executives from around the world. And that was about a 4.5-month program. I quit my job. I was working at a local real estate, but I needed something extra that would, be the it factor to get me back into corporate finance. And from there, I landed at State Street, where I'm very happy working on the global credit review team in corporate finance. So that's been my journey. So I've had several pivots in my career. Starting out financial services, then going to the OCC, then becoming an academic professor, and then going to HBS, getting my executive ed program, and then getting back into financial services. So I think it's really important on your journey to be flexible, to see what's happening on your road, and then to pivot. And just don't be afraid if you're entering into new territory or if you're entering into a new industry, you're smart. You'll figure it out. And that's my big takeaway. Be ready to pivot and, go full force into, new opportunities.
Cheryl, thank you so much. What a journey. And thank you all. I see some questions are coming in. We are going to hold them till the end, but keep them coming. Cheryl, just a quick thing. Did you ever swim again?
Yeah, I still swim. Yeah, I swam about maybe 2 times a week, or I swam a lot because I actually before my the HBS program, I had actually broke my ankle. So that was part of my recovery period because I couldn't walk for about 4 months.
Oh
So
gosh.
I was kind of hampered into the in the chair. But yeah, I just swim. I swam every morning, I guess in the summer between May and August, about every morning. So yeah,
Outstanding.
let's get back
Yeah,
into it.
exactly. Well, this is quite a journey. And Penny, you are up next. We have so many fascinating women from Rochester now living in the New England area. Cheryl, thank you for yours. And Penny, I'm going to let you just go right through and share where you've been, what you've been up to since the U of R.
Okay, yeah. So I graduated from the University of Rochester in 1997. And I loved my time there. I mean, I got to roommate with Erica Durcotton, my good old buddy. And I played softball there. I just made some great lifelong friendships there. Honestly, it was a really great fit for me. And then after school, I moved to Boston and wanted a bigger city, wanted a bigger metropolitan area, and eventually made my way to the Harvard Business School. Because at the time I was kind of debating if I wanted to go into academia. I was kind of fiddling with the idea of getting a PhD and going the academic route. And so after having been in Boston for 2 years, I decided that I couldn't live without my husband. He and I dated at Rochester, and he was in Rochester still getting his medical degree. And so he kept saying, Penny, just move back to Rochester. I'm like, all right, I'll move back. So made my way back to Rochester to be with him. And, I was very uncertain at that time, like I was pursuing this great goal in Boston. And I thought, this is the career path for me. And by going to Rochester, I really wondered if that was the right path for me. I'm like making this big jump. But now that I have this wonderful hindsight, it's of course the right decision because he and I got married. And after moving back to Rochester, I eventually got my graduate degree at Simon. So he and I had a little bit of a challenge of trying to find programs that had a good anesthesia program, which is what he ended up pursuing, and a good MBA program. So we had the challenge of trying to make that fit for the two of us, which at the time, I was like 23 years old, and it gave me a lot. I mean, if I could get to these top ranked schools, but then I'd have to be without my husband, and he could go to these top ranked, anesthesia programs, but then I wouldn't be there. And we had already done 2 years of, being apart. And so we kind of made the commitment that we were going to do our programs in the same city. So Rochester was a great fit for that, even though, I, would have been happy in a different city. That was the one that matched for us. And that decision was largely financial for us. They gave me a really good financial aid package to come back for my graduate degree. And, balancing that with his 6-figure debt of medical school, it was a really good decision for us financially. So I did my graduate work at the Simon School while he did his residency there. And then he had a few more years left of his residency when I graduated from Simon. So I was primarily looking for jobs in Rochester because, again, by this point, we had been married a few years. We didn't want to do a commuting situation back and forth. We had made that decision. So I found this position at Paytech, or they found me from Simon. And it was really a great job, frankly. I mean, at the time I was like, well, I have to stay in Rochester and it's telecom, but they were it was a medium-sized growing telecom company, and they wanted somebody that had finance background that could help them value other companies because they were looking to acquire other businesses. So, coming out of a finance academic situation, it was the sexiest job I could possibly imagine, trying to value other companies. So they hired me to do just that. I had these complex financial models where I would analyze a smaller company's income statement and balance sheet, and basically project what I thought they should pay for these companies. So it was very rigorous finance. Honestly, it was high finance. They had some derivative assets that they held in-house to hedge against interest rate risk. So I got to work with a company that was managing risk by way of derivatives, which again is very exciting work. And they were going public at the same time. So talk about like high finance. It was everything I wanted right out of grad school. But then after Rick, my husband, finished his graduate degree or his residency program, I really wanted to go back to New England. My family is from New England. And so I had been kind of in his ear, like, I moved back here for you, buddy. So now's my turn to pick where we move to. So when he was finished with residency, even though I really loved my job at Paytech, we just were ready for like a little bit of a shift. Both of us were just, we were both working a lot of hours and we were just ready for a shift. Hi, honey. Sorry, my daughter's making her way in here. So we were just ready for a shift to move back to New England. So came back to New England. And at that point in time, the child who just left the room was born 16 years ago. So it was definitely like Cheryl was saying, like I made a conscious decision. When I was working at Paytech, I was working crazy hours. And Rick and I had both said, like, if we ever have children, one of us is going to have to downshift. And so I kind of said, okay, I'll downshift. And so I worked, less sexy of a job, but I loved working part-time. I worked part-time when she was little and worked for different organizations as a finance manager. And honestly, at that point in time, the career part of my life definitely took a backseat to the family part of my life. And that was a conscious choice. I knew I was going to, upshift again, but I wanted to be around more when our kids were little. And so then probably about 10 years ago, I started feeling like, okay, they're getting bigger. We had moved back to Massachusetts where I grew up, and my father had been a realtor for many years in the Berkshires. And he said, Penny, come and sell real estate. And I said, Dad, I'm never going to do that. I am never going to sell real estate. I will not do that with you. I have, a finance background and I don't want to sell people houses. So, he said, we kind of talked it over. What about if we start buying properties? Because he had this, real estate background and I have a finance background. And so I said, yeah, I could get behind that. I could get behind, building a portfolio of assets that I own, that I manage. So that's just what we did. We started buying properties and just, finding undervalued properties, mostly because of his connections, because I had been gone for 15 years. And so just started building our portfolio. And now, I've been doing this for about 10 years. And, my husband is happily employed here. Our children are happy in this community. And so that's been a really great shift for me to move into being my own boss, because for me, having children and having a career, I like being my own boss because I can completely, schedule my own time. So, Monday morning, I schedule my week, and those are puzzle pieces of my children and puzzle pieces of my husband and puzzle pieces of my business. And, during COVID, I worked a lot at night. I had to work at night because my children are home, and that was fine. I would work most nights from 8 until 11, 12 o'clock at night because, I had to get the work done and my kids were home. So for me, I love the path that I took. And if I, had to look back at 21-year-old Penny, it's different than I would have thought. I like this little path that Marissa made, because when you're 21, you think like, okay, that's the direction. I'm going that way. And I think I wasn't prepared for having to make decisions based on the love of my life, but I wouldn't have it any other way. As you can see from the pictures here, that when I was going through finding pictures, I would actually email them to my husband and said, like, look at how happy we are through all this stuff. And I wouldn't have it any other way. He's the love of my life. And I'm happy to have made different decisions based on the fact that I was with him and we were making it work together. So that's it.
I think that is just an extraordinary story. And I think it's so important for women to hear this. You didn't sacrifice anything. You made different choices when new opportunities presented themselves, namely in the form of baby number one.
Who you all met.
Exactly. The journey is fascinating. I'm so happy to hear that this is still the love of your life, and that you're all so happy in these pictures. So thank you for sharing that piece of your journey since Rochester. Thrilled you got those good years in the finance side of your career, but thrilled you're getting to be the mom you want to be. So that's awesome. And now, last but not least, Athena, thank you for waiting in the wings. we have Athena Kazvikis joining us, and Athena has, an equal but different, absolutely fascinating story of what she's been doing since her University of Rochester years. So Athena, will you share with the audience what you've been up to?
Yeah, I like to pack a lot into a small amount of time. So we're going to do that. So I'm Athena Kizvikis. I am the CEO and founder of a company called Behave Bras. And that is not the thing I thought I would be doing at the age of 39. So let me show you where I started. So I grew up in an awesome family. I am from Rochester, New York, born and raised, well, not born, but raised at like the age of 1. So I ended up going to a bunch of different colleges before I graduated because I just couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. So I ended up graduating from St. John Fisher. If you guys are Rochester people, you know that that's a local college where the Buffalo Bills go to training camp. I graduated there at the age of 22, and then went directly into the Simon School of Business. And the story there goes like a lot of my career went, I think, being like a mix of naive as well as maybe brash and ignorant. I walked into the Simon School and I said, hey, I want to go to school here. When does your MBA program close? And at this time, I was a senior in college. And they were like, Friday. And I said, great. I would like to go to school here. So what do I need to do? And they laughed at me and they said, well, you got to take the GMATs and fill out the application and do something. And the lady kind of looked at me a bit sideways, and I don't blame her. I would have looked at me sideways too. So anyways, I signed up for the GMAT on that Wednesday, took it, grabbed my score, did the stuff, got the recommendations from some mentors and teachers, and showed up on Friday and said, hey, I'd like to go to school here again. And I got accepted as an early leader. So apparently I didn't know this, but apparently usually you wait a minute. Like the lovely distinguished ladies before me are really smart. They wait a second, figure out kind of if they want to pivot again and then go to business school. I just was like, we'll just do it all at once. So I went in there, really quickly figured out that brand management was going to be the closest thing to what I really wanted to do, was be an entrepreneur. And so I, as you guys know at Simon, you can kind of pick where you want to get your MBA concentrations. And so I did strategy as well as entrepreneurship. I got out of there, got an offer at Procter & Gamble for an internship, moved to Connecticut for like 4 months. That was insane. Working on hair color, which is fun to work on if you've never done that. And then took the full-time offer after my internship and ended up graduating at Simon. So I went full-time. I was the VP on the graduate council of social affairs. So a little bit about me. I don't like to drink at all, really, but I used to bartend to pay for college. And then I like to watch other people have a good time. So I did that in business school on the graduate council, and that was super fun. And then I got over into Procter & Gamble and I moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. So real quick, before we get off Simon, you can see this bottom right picture of me where I look like I'm 12. That's when I was at Simon. So they had me in like the catalog, the new student catalog. And that's me down in the right-hand corner I look at that now and I'm like, I look 15. So I got out of there and I went into Procter & Gamble and had a very interesting career working in brand management at Procter & Gamble. If you guys aren't familiar with it, brand management is essentially the executive function at that company because they're a consumer product goods company. So I got great experience working on billion-dollar brands, Secret, Tag, Gillette, Vicks. I met all of the celebrities because I had a very interesting career. I spent all of the money. And then I ended up leaving in 2012 because I was really interested, again, still young and naive, very interested in working for a company that had a more mission-based focus. And so I got recruited by a billionaire, true story, out here in Boston to come and be a brand director. And so I left to start with Unreal. And it was a wild ride. We won't go into details there, but I learned a lot about what's the difference between a billion-dollar brand and a startup. I sort of jumped all the way back to the beginning, so to speak. And it was kind of crazy. I left there and followed the CEO over in as the VP of marketing at a company called Ciao Bella Gelato and Sorbetto. So I started to get into food, and food, I'm Italian and Greek. So food is love in my house. It also means pounds, but it also means love. So I got into food, really, really loved it. Had, like, I heard Cheryl say this as well, but just got a bit overworked, I think, commuting into Parsippany, New Jersey, and living in Boston once a week, and living in hotels. But it didn't end there, because I ended up going down to work for a company called Killcliff. At that point, Ciao Bella was owned by a private equity group, a couple of them, and they asked me to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, and be the CMO of Killcliff. So I did that again for another 3.5 years. And ultimately, I was sort of pulled into every position I've ever had, or I've fallen into it head first, essentially. And I think, I am not as naive as I once was. I understand that my path is probably going to pivot 46 times before I'm 46. So I'm very open to that at this point. What's interesting is that it pivoted me after Killcliff kind of right into becoming what I had always kind of wanted to be, which was an entrepreneur, solo founder, own my own company. I got there with Behave Bras. I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a minute. But really started that with my 401k that I had been building in my savings. Moved back home with mom. I have the world's greatest mother. And basically invested everything I had into something that I very much believe in, which is helping women such as myself manage large breasts. So what I mean by that is we make beautiful wire-free bras for women with large breasts. We recently, on March 11th, aired on Shark Tank. That was not my business plan to start, but it ended up working out that Shark Tank called and I said yes. So we did that on March 11th, and I haven't really slept since. So sorry for the sweatshirt, but this is the most makeup I've worn in about a month, because we have been crazy. We sold out in less than 2 days, made over $400,000 in a minute. And now we're on back order. We have about, I think, a 10,000 person waiting list as of today. So I think it's great with the success, but it now has opened up a whole host of problems. And I'm sure if I were to talk to you guys again in December, I will have pivoted 46 more times until December. So I think a much shorter path than the other women, but nonetheless, somewhat interesting, maybe. From where it started.
Extremely interesting. Athena, I mean, remarkable, and congratulations on, I did get to see I got a tip that you were going to be on Shark Tank. So I did get to see the episode. It's amazing what you three women are doing. And when you think back, I think Penny, it was you. When I talked to 21-year-old Penny, as you're graduating from the University of Rochester or walking across the stage at Simon, you women, could you even imagine that we would have these kinds of opportunities at Athena? I mean, I'm just hysterical listening to your story, because it's like, oh, it's Tuesday, I think I'll go to the Simon School and just go. It's like, well, what else were you going to do that day? So it's great. And I hope that's what all of you are getting from all three of these women. It's this extraordinary journey that really you cannot plan. You didn't lay this out when you were 21 years old and go, oh, well, that's what I'm going to do. And these are the places I'm going to live in Italy because I'm going to marry this amazing Italian guy. And that's what we're going to do. Or, I'm going to raise my kids and find this balance so I can be a solo business owner and still be a mom. We don't know this. I can't wait for the bra story, but we'll hold there for just a second. I want to, again, encourage all of you to put notes, put chat in the chat, put questions in. I'd like to bring it to the three of you, and Athena, I'll start with you, of today versus maybe when you were deciding to go to the Simon School. How do you define success, or do you?
That's such a good question, I think, because I find that a lot of other people define success for you. And so I would argue that you almost need to define it for yourself first, or everyone else is going to do it for you. I gotta say, I don't feel successful from our recent I guess you got to call it success, but I don't feel successful yet because my mission is a lot bigger and longer, I think, than just one moment in time on a television show that, quite frankly, I had never watched before I went on it. I just, every time I would go to sit and watch it, it made me nervous. I was like, they're going to ruin someone's life. I can't watch the show. So for me, success, the way I have it defined is pretty close to what it was, honestly, coming into Simon, which was, can I look in the mirror every day and be like, I'm a good human? Did I try to be a better human today than I was yesterday? I don't want to get religious about it, but that really is what I do. And then where do I want to kind of go tomorrow? Am I helping people, or am I just helping myself? And it's kind of how you saw my career go. I was really trying to get to a place where what I could provide wasn't just sales or working on someone else's brand. But for me, success has always been the yearning to help other people. And so I just happened to figure out a way to do it. And maybe sometime in the future, support myself. We'll see. But yeah.
Details. That is great. Thank you. And Penny, how about from your lens? Do you define success? Has it been defined for you? Where are you on that success definition?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think looking back, if I had to ask myself when I was younger, what is success? I think I probably would have gone the more traditional corporate finance. I would have answered in that way, like corporate finance. I'm going to be the CFO of some organization. I would have said that when I was younger, but I guess I've shifted what I think that means over the years, just because I've had more life experiences, like part of my graduate degree was in Australia, and I, having been in another country, my husband was able to come with me. Just learn a different lifestyle, you know what I mean? And you learn how other people live. And I think for me, yeah, I think if I had to look back at my younger self and say, am I successful now? I think I'm probably more successful now than I was thinking when I was 21, because I figured out a way to, have the CFO dream that I had when I was younger, but to balance that with the other things I love in my life. So on a trajectory that I was on right after Simon, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to have both of those things if I had stayed in a more corporate environment. I just was working too many hours to have both, frankly. So yeah, I think I'm frankly more successful than I thought I was going to be, just because I'm living a balanced life that I get to, our business is growing, and we have like almost $7 million in assets and growing, and we're always acquiring properties. And at the same time, I get to be my own boss. And so, yeah, I think success. So to answer your question, success isn't always what is written down on a piece of paper, or what's written down as like a trajectory. It's more personal. It's in your heart, what you feel. You're living a happy, good, honest life, and leaving like one thing, leaving the world than before you were born. I mean, I run my business with my siblings. My siblings own it with me, and we talk about that all the time. Are we leaving these assets better than when we bought them? Do they look better? Are the people who live there happy? Are they having what they need? Because that's part of our goal too, is to have a happy, leave these things better than when you found them. So that's
an awesome philosophy around success, both of you. And Cheryl, how about for you? We grew up and had the Rochester experience, a lot earlier than Athena and Penny. We got a couple more years behind us. What's success for you?
Yeah, I think probably when I started success at Rochester, graduating, that was to get, into a management training program, in financial services. So that was like a big bump. And then, you were going to be VP and then SVP, and I wanted to go live abroad. So I did get abroad, right? It wasn't in banking. I did get abroad. Back to Paris, right? I wanted to be to work in the JP Morgan office at Place Vendôme, Paris. That was my goal. So when I was working at Société Générale, the Opera House, I'd always go once a week, go and take pictures and stand by the JP Morgan office at Place Vendôme. So this is where I'm going to be. This is my dream. But didn't get to quite to Paris. got a little bit further south than Rome, but it's different. So when I went to Rome, I had to kind of take a step back because I really thought that, you know, they were going to love me. I was a New Yorker, I was American, you know, had all this great experience to get a job. And then kind of like I hit a wall because, well, you can't really work yet. You know, you don't speak Italian fluently. I go, yeah, I guess you're right. I don't speak Italian. And then I needed my citizenship. So you had to be living in Rome for I think about 3.5 years. And then you had to go through all these interviews and blah, 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 bureaucrat and tape. So I had to kind of sit back and say, you know, kind of slow down. So I just immersed myself in Italian culture, started teaching executive courses to executives at Italian banks, the Telecom Italia. And that was really good because they were able to, you know, teach me about Italian culture, and I was able to teach them about American culture, and just basically just kind of just slow down, get into, you know, the Italian way of living, the Italian way of life, you know, meeting your friends in cafes. And it's a very, very different lifestyle there because friends and families are very important. And they always used to say to me, you know, you Americans, you live to work, and that's not good. You know, here in Italy, we work to live. You know, so you have a job, but you have a job so you can enjoy nice things in life, right? But, you know, you want to slow down and, you know, it's so much better here, Cheryl. You know, you get 5 or 6 weeks vacation, then, you know, starting to look pretty good. Okay, you're making a less salary, but you're able to enjoy, you know, really slow down and enjoy. So that was a big, big game changer for me. And it's just so nice to be in another culture, you know, and try to take the best, you know, of different cultures. So after I was able to get a job there, and that was really nice. And then I was able to really immerse in Italian culture, but they sent me immediately to Manhattan. So I kind of had the best of both worlds, right? Because first they said, well, where is the office? And I'm not going to New York to be in Jersey City or somewhere. They said, oh, no, it's not that office. We're on Park Avenue. I'm like, okay, where on Park Avenue? 53rd Street. Oh, no, excuse me, 57th Street, right near Bloomie's. I go, fine. So that was good. But it was the best of both worlds because once you go outside the office, you're in New York, Manhattan. But when you're in the office, you know, it's like being in Italy. So it was the best of both worlds. So it was fascinating. But I just think that it's just really, really good. You get an opportunity if you're working in corporate to go abroad for a couple of years and live another culture and learn the language. It'll just open you up wide to different possibilities, I think.
That is awesome. Thank you. Thank you all. Hey, we have a really interesting question in here. So I'm going to tack over to the chat for a minute. For each of you, and Cheryl, you're up because you're right here. How do you, where'd that question go? This is Sherry Fingal Murphy has written, and she's one of our big fans and advocates here in the New England group. And also the chief behind the Women in Financial Services group on the Melior Collective. So if you'd like to join that, for those of you in financial services, please check out the Melior Collective. But her question is, I'd like to hear what resilience means to you. And she really liked all of your stories. So Cheryl, how is it you've become resilient? What's it mean to you?
I learned resilience when I was living in Rome. The first year was very hard because my husband worked in Pomezia, which was kind of outside of Rome. And so we got in a condo. We rented a condo that was, you know, kind of on the outsides of Rome, which is like away from the wall. So it was for him, it was a 20-minute, you know, commute. But for me to get into like the Piazza Popolo in the center, I take a bus for 10 minutes, then wait another 10 minutes for the metro. Then the metro I had to change, right, at Termini, and that was another 45 minutes. I said, but it almost took me 2 hours to get in the center. And I told my husband, look, if we don't move back, I need to be inside the wall where I can either, you know, walk, you know, to my apartment where we live, because there were a lot of shopper rows there. And I remember one time there was a strike. There was a strike. And there were no cell phones at that time. And it took me, I think, 2.5 hours to walk home. And then within a month, you know, I found a place where I could walk to Piazza Popolo. It was the center behind the walls in 10 minutes. So I didn't know that. Like if you're a foreigner in a you know, new country, you know, to really get better acclimated, it's better to live in the center. And so that was resilience for me. You know, just being patient, being able to do that. Because the first year was very tough, not speaking the language. Because very few people spoke English, and I had to communicate in French with most people.
Wow.
So when I just
That's
studied Italian on and off privately for about 3.5 years until I got my job. So it was just like, it was something really slow, and everyone said, oh, take it your time. You just got here, it should take, 1 or 2 years. I'm like, what do you mean? Because, from New York, let's like get a job, do this, do that, blah, 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 but I really had to take it slow, and that to build my resilience. And then things worked out. So through teaching accounting executive courses at Telecom Italia, they hired me in this great job and sent me to New York, right? So I was on a management track right away. I had no idea that teaching these executives that, I'd find friendship with these Italian executives and get to know them. They got to know me, and they would give me an opportunity. But that's how it happened for me.
That's outstanding. What a great opportunity, and you learned patience, so you got to be resilient.
Yeah.
Penny, how about you? Do you think about being resilient and what you faced over the years to get where you're at?
Yes. I mean, when I was listening to Cheryl and thinking about it, I think 3 moments really came to me. First was when I was living in Boston, and I had this sort of disconnect where I thought my path was going to be in Boston. And I was working at this great institution, Harvard Business School, and I kind of had envisioned myself going to the Kennedy School, and this is going to be great. But my husband is in Rochester, my future husband. And it was a big moment of like, if I move away from these obvious opportunities here in Boston, am I going to still have the wonderful opportunities, And I think I didn't realize that because I was so young that the drive was in me. It wasn't just where I was and the people that I was around. So that was the first moment. The second moment was probably, so I'm going to fast forward now to 2018. So I was working at Cedar Tree with my father, as I said, and my father became sick and died in 2018. So he got sick and died over a course of 9 months. So, he was my business partner. And, I definitely, after he passed away, it was a big moment of like, sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, dig deep, this is not an easy moment. And that was one of those moments, I had to take on a lot of the things that he had done before that I had not done. Extracting unsavory tenants was not in my wheelhouse at that point in time. And suddenly I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I'm tough. I can do this. So, that was definitely a moment where I looked inward and said, like, you've got this, Penny. You're strong. You're smart. You got this. And so I think having that inner trust in yourself, I can do this. And just going with it, and then thirdly, probably during COVID, just the uncertainty of our tenant population, not knowing if those people were going to be able to pay their rent and how that was going to trickle down. And, all the rest of the stuff we all were facing with schools and businesses, and just such a wacky time. And I think, just having that inner strength of saying, yes, I am strong enough to weather this. And I'm strong, I'm smart, I can make my way through these rough waters. And I think just having trust in yourself that you can do it. And that has helped me through some of those tough times.
Yeah, those are definitely tough times. I'm so sorry about your dad.
Thank
to be
you.
your business
Yeah.
partner and your dad.
Yeah. Yep.
Goodness.
It was tough, but
Boy, channel dad, because he should be proud. I mean, look at you.
thanks.
That's great. That is definitely resilience. And Athena, you must have in your 46 more jobs to come, something about resilience.
Yeah, I do. It's interesting. It's interesting to find what other people would consider success younger in a career and not necessarily agree with them, right? Like we define it differently ourselves. So, but similar to Penny, I've always known that I have the ability to step up and figure it out. And I think as women, I'm not sure if we give ourselves enough credit on a daily basis with how much gets thrown at us, whether it's in relationships or families or social situations. But I learned really quickly when I left Procter & Gamble that I was going to be the youngest person in the boardroom by 30, 40 years. The only female, most likely, not only in the boardroom, but on the executive team. And I learned very, very quickly how to be resilient and how to manage the different situations. I had a target buyer. I remember I was in Minneapolis and I had a target buyer that I was out there for a meeting on a brand I was running, Ciao Bella, and he walked right by me to my intern, Sam, and shook his hand and said like, "Oh, hello, it's really nice to meet you." And again, those are all little tiny micro moments, I think, where we show resilience, where we get to choose how we respond, because we can't really choose what's going to happen to us. So I am very proud of that. I think probably the best resilience so far has been recently with Behave, because if you think for 5 minutes rationally about starting a company with your savings and 401k, when you were making quite a decent amount of money as a CMO, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, no one rationally would ever choose to be an entrepreneur with their own money. And so I thought about it for all of 5 minutes. And that's just kind of how I am. It's like I've proven time and time again that I can figure it out. And I remember I met my COO, I hired him. He's about 64. He's been doing this for 40 years in lingerie, and I knew nothing about lingerie. And I met him, and after he finished sort of patronizing me on a phone call about, why was I the 20th person that week that was calling about starting her own bra company, I remember very kindly, I said to him, like, listen, short of giving you my social security number, I've told you everything you need to know. So at this point, if you want to know why we're going to be successful, it's because I'll run through a brick wall repeatedly. I will make this so. So either you want to come and be a consultant for me or not, but it's totally your choice. I'm doing this. So, and he called me the next day and said, "Hey, I want to be your partner. I want to jump in on it." So it's that resiliency where everybody hasn't heard from me in years. And is just like, what are you up to? Where's the flashy job? Where's the flashy title? It's that resiliency of living with my mom and selling my car and clothes and like worrying about buying a $5 cup of coffee. I know I can go get a job tomorrow and make a ton of money, but that's not what's going to be making me happy right now. And so it's like everybody just said, Cheryl and Penny, I think it's proving out to yourself enough times that you can handle whatever's thrown your way with grace. And even if you don't handle it with grace this time, maybe next time you will. So that's where I'm at. I am in that mode right now where I had a best friend reach out to me and she was like, "I want to say congratulations to you, but it has nothing to do with Shark Tank. Like, I have known for 2 years how you have just been grinding in the shadows by yourself, just as a solo founder, making this happen. And no one sees how many times you've been knocked down and got up. And that is what I want to congratulate you on, not about Shark Tank. Who cares about that? I just want to say congrats for like getting up every time with a smile." So that's what it means for me, without a doubt.
Yeah, that is fantastic. These stories that you women are bringing to others, I think I have 2 millennial daughters and they're struggling. And we hear about the millennials a lot of times struggling, and the younger women, they're not seeing the punching bag, right? that any of us who have any kind of career in any industry doing anything, we've been walked by, we've been ignored, we've been asked to get the coffee. All of these things are real. They're getting better, which of course, if you're, 25, you don't know they're going to get better yet, but they will. And these stories that you're articulating and sharing with us, I hope bring some inspiration to the younger generation, because we're the women going before you. We're still fighting it every day. We're still, experiencing the not always fun things about being a woman in America, but damn, it's better than it was. And we're making it better for the kids. So, I mean, I love that the resilience stories are so powerful, ladies. That is fantastic. So listen, we have about 6 or 7 minutes left. And what I'd like to know is if you could leave some advice for everyone. You've snipped at it a bit here and there in your remarks, but if you could give us a bit of advice that you'd like to share with other women, both those of us who are not millennials? Like, what should we be thinking about as we move into our 60s and 70s? And for the millennials, like what are the big 2 or 3 ahas that you'd like to leave as advice to the audience? Penny, can I start with you?
Sure. You can start with me. So broad stroke advice. I mean, I would say I'm a planner, I'm kind of like a type A planner where I like to think ahead and plan ahead. And, but I think my advice would actually be to do less of that. I think that plagued me a bit in my 20s because so much of my life was unpredictable. It was out of my control. And, I think my kind of broad stroke advice would be, don't worry so much about the future. Even now, I mean, I could say that to myself now, and just work your hardest now, do your best at what you're doing right now. Focus your energy on what you're doing right now and do really well at it. And it's going to work out, because I think I worried about that when I was younger. I know I'm hardworking. I know I'm smart. What's the future going to hold? What am I going to be doing in 10 years? And I think I would tell myself or anyone else, just don't worry so much about the future. Just focus on what you're doing right now and just knock it out of the park.
Outstanding. I'm taking that lesson tomorrow to work. Darn it. Right now, here and now, Marcia. All right, Cheryl, some advice from you.
The best I would give is, if you must say, not to be so rigid in what you think is going to happen, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who you're going to fall in love with. You don't know who you're going to marry. You don't know what kind of opportunities are going to be for you. I think the best thing to do is be flexible. And some of the best job opportunities that you will get is not when you actually send, your resume to someone. It'll be the best jobs I've gotten is where someone asked me to apply for a job. They sought me out. And those were the really good opportunities, like at Telecom Italia. They said, oh, you would be great for this. And I didn't know it was such a good job until I spoke to one of the executive vice president and secretary. And I'm like, why are they sending me to New York? I want a job in Rome. My husband's in Rome. And then she explained to me, you don't understand. This is one of the best jobs you can get in the country. You're going to get a double salary. You're going to get a free apartment. You're going to get this. You're going to get that. And I'm like, oh, okay. That doesn't sound so bad. So after she told me all the benefits and stuff, and you're going to have access to all the executives and get to meet the CEO, and you're never going to do that, sitting, in a cubicle in Rome. And so I had no idea about that. So it was this executive secretary who had to tell me exactly how good this job was to go abroad for 2 years and work at the New York City office. So I just think the best thing to do is be flexible and to pivot. In my late 50s, I went to Harvard Business School in the executive ed program, and I pivoted to a job at State Street, right? And they just asked me to be on a D&I committee. And tomorrow afternoon, I'm going to be on this D&I committee. I'm going to meet the executive committee and the management committee and the board of directors. So, things are, really picking up, and I'm back in the saddle now, and I love it. I love it. But just be flexible. And sometimes you shouldn't try so hard to go in like one field, because sometimes another opportunity would be right around the corner that you don't even see coming. But just be flexible.
Excellent. Thank you, Cheryl.
Stay down one.
Fantastic. And Athena, we're going to leave you with the last minute here to talk about your advice.
Well, I mean, listen, Cheryl and Penny already said what I think we all like. I'm giving advice to all you all who already know this, right? Being flexible is and agile is the most important skill. But I guess what I would say is don't take everything so seriously. What makes my family amazing? They're upstairs, by the way, working. So they have stopped what they're doing and they've been working for me for about 2 weeks straight now. So since Shark Tank aired, we have the whole family working over here. My poor mother's chained to her chair. But I would say don't take yourself so seriously. One of the things that we joke about in my house is that I will never get an ego. because my mother would not allow it. She's Italian, the other side's Greek, and they always tell you like, put some blush on, do your hair, look nice. They do not allow ego in our family, and there's always room in business. There's always room in personal, not to take everything so seriously. And I had a similar story as Penny. It's like, I'm 22 coming in hot at Simon. Like everybody's older. Everybody's telling me I'm not going to get jobs. Everybody's being like, oh, you have no experience. And I'm just like, I'll figure it out. Yes, I will. Let's go. And then throughout the course of it, I had a lot of fun. Like, now, again, not a drinker, but I totally don't mind getting other people drinking and having fun and socializing. Same thing when I went to Mass Challenge. They call me the mayor of Mass Challenge. Have more fun, I guess I would say. And because you're smart, I wish I could tell myself this even more. Like, stop and smell the roses. Have a lot more fun. You're going to figure it out. You always do. You're going to work harder than anybody you know, but you should also like have more fun than anybody you know. Because what's the point? I mean, I do this job, as you guys all probably do too, more than I see my family sometimes. So might as well make the most of it and have fun. That's on top of being agile. That's my fun name.
Outstanding note to end on. Ladies, we are at the top of the hour. I cannot thank you enough, Cheryl, Penny, Athena. Your stories are amazing. Thank you so much for sharing them. And Marisa, I'd say we need to find more formats to get these three together again and share the Rochester story. You start someplace and look where you are today. Also, a quick reminder that in New England, we do a monthly breakfast, but sometimes it's lunch. In April, we're doing lunch, and Marisa just popped the link into the chat. Thank you. So if you'd like to join us, please do. I think Athena might try to rope you in to come work with mom and everybody. So be prepared for that. But thank you all so much for coming. Please consider joining the New England Network. The women here, as you can see, are nothing short of amazing. You are too. Come join us. Ladies, thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great spring, everyone.